There are sounds that never leave your head. The chains clink against the wall. Clink and clink again, like someone tapping on my skull for decades. That room. God, I can still smell it. The damp mold. The old blood. The sweat. A dim yellow bulb swaying like it might die any second. In the corner, a young Vietnamese woman sat on a wobbly wooden chair, hands tied behind her back. Hair hanging down over her face, but I could still see her eyes. And those eyes, they cut right through me. Not fear. Not begging. Not even hate. Just this strange silence, like she already knew how it was going to end. Knew that I would stand there. I didn't take part, but I stood there. And I didn't stop it. God, how many years has it been? 50? 60? And it's still yesterday. They say time blurs memories. They don't know, some things get sharper with time. Back then I was barely in my 20s. Thought I was some kind of hero fighting for freedom, for ideals. I believed every word they drilled into us. The enemy is the Viet Cong. We have to wipe them out. I knew nothing about this country, except for the maps in our briefings and the blood-soaked stories in the mess hall. But that afternoon, in that four-walled room that felt like it was choking the air out of my lungs, I learned something else. War doesn't just kill with bullets and bombs. It kills the best parts of you. I stood there. Heard the whip crack on skin. Heard her voice break when a hand clamped over her mouth. Heard the ragged breathing, and then the silence. And I did nothing. Not a word. Not a step. That night I didn't sleep. Truth is, I've never slept right since. Every time I close my eyes, I see those eyes. Every time I wake up, I wish I'd said stop in that room. But I didn't. I let it happen. I'm not telling this to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm telling it because I can't keep my mouth shut anymore. Silence is just another way of keeping it alive. Inside me, and maybe inside the others who were there. This isn't just a war story. It's a wound no doctor can heal. A wound that doesn't bleed, but eats you from the inside out. Someone's hearing me right now. I just hope they understand. Survivors carry things. Not just scars on the skin, but a life sentence of silence with no end date. Maybe, to understand why I stood still in that room, you need to know how I lived before that day. My unit was stationed in a small town in South Vietnam, a few hours by truck from Saigon. It was just a dot in the middle of endless rice fields. Days were blistering hot, nights were damp and cold, and the mosquitoes buzzed in your ears like they'd enlisted in the war themselves. We lived in hastily built tents, wooden floors that creaked, tin roofs patched together from whatever we could find. Around us, barbed wire. Beyond that, darkness, the kind that didn't just hide trees but hid the people we called the enemy. When I first arrived, I was just a kid, barely 22. I thought it was just a mission, that I was an American soldier, a symbol of strength and justice. I believed in the speeches, in the posters, believed we were here to protect freedom. Every morning, before heading out, our commanding officer would read us the latest intel on the Viet Cong. Always the kind of stories that made your blood boil. They planted mines that killed children, they attacked villages, ambushed convoys. Every story ended the same way: if you don't kill them first, they'll kill you. We weren't taught to understand them. We were only taught to destroy them. Day after day, those stories became the only truth in my head. When I saw someone in a brown tunic or a conical hat, I didn't see a civilian anymore. I saw a potential threat. And the worst part, I thought that was the right way to think. Night patrols made it worse. We'd walk in a line along narrow dirt paths, the jungle pressing in from both sides. The chorus of insects, the rustle of leaves, and sometimes a single gunshot cracking the night. Every night felt like someone was watching. Sweat running down my neck, my hand always ready on the trigger. I lost friends out there. One stepped on a mine, there was nothing left to recognize. Another was shot leading the column. Every time it happened, the anger swelled. We told each other we wouldn't let it go unanswered. We swore we'd get even. And hatred, it became fuel. It worked its way into every order, every glance, every movement. It made me believe that anyone captured, anyone suspected, was the real enemy. And in my head, the enemy wasn't human anymore. Looking back, maybe those days were what put me in that room. When the line between right and wrong, between human and enemy, blurred so much I couldn't see what I was losing. Some mornings start like any other, but end with a mark you carry for the rest of your life. That morning was one of them. The sun had just begun to rise, pale yellow spilling over the edges of the rice fields like someone had brushed paint across the horizon. Dew clung to the tips of the stalks, tiny beads that looked beautiful but stung cold against your skin. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth, mixed with faint traces of cooking smoke drifting in from somewhere in the village. I sat on a rickety wooden stool, cradling a cup of watery coffee in a dented metal mug, trying to get some warmth into my body before the day started. I heard running footsteps from the direction of the command tent. Sergeant Morgan appeared, face hard, breathing heavy. Intel just in. Viet Cong spotted in the next village about 2 miles out. The order spread through the camp like a spark through dry grass. Breakfast was left half-eaten. Belts were yanked tight, ammo checked, rifles loaded. The air filled with the clink of metal and the thud of boots on packed dirt. The CO's words were short and cold, capture if possible. On paper that sounded clean. But here, capture rarely stayed clean. We split into 3 squads and started moving toward the village. I was in the middle column, my shirt already damp with a mix of sweat and morning dew. Each step sank into the soft earth, the mud grabbing at my boots, adding weight with every stride. I could hear the steady breathing of the guys around me, the occasional silent hand signal from the point man. Every movement was careful, deliberate. The early morning had that strange kind of stillness, not peace but the kind that's wound tight like a rope ready to snap. I could almost smell gunpowder in my mind even though it wasn't there yet. A few hundred yards from the village we fanned out. My squad circled around to cut off the back. Somewhere close by, a rooster crowed, a long cracked sound that seemed to drag through the damp air. And then gunfire. An AK burst, quick and harsh. Then the sharper, more rapid cracks of M16s firing back. Instinct took over. I dropped to the edge of a paddy, pressed myself into the earthen bank. The cold mud seeped through my sleeves, mixing with the acrid tang of gunpowder that now filled the air. It was over in less than 3 minutes, but my heartbeat was still racing like it had been an hour. Silence came back in pieces. First the gunfire stopped, then the shouting, then only the sound of boots moving through wet grass. From up ahead, Morgan's voice, "Clear." We moved in. The village was just a scattering of thatched huts, bamboo walls still trembling from the shock of gunfire. Chickens scattered, dogs barked and then went quiet. In the open patch of dirt at the center, 4 people sat with their hands tied. 3 men, thin, hollow-eyed, their clothes streaked with mud. And 2 young women. One woman kept her head down, hair falling like a curtain over her face, her dark BABA shirt caked with dirt. The other, she sat upright, her eyes wide. Her clothes were worn thin, black pants faded from sun and washing, her bare feet coated with mud. But her face, dirty as it was, held something I couldn't pin down. I don't know why her eyes locked me in place like that. They weren't afraid. They weren't angry. They weren't pleading. They measured me. Like she was memorizing every line of our faces. When the sergeant asked through the interpreter, "Who's your commander?" no one answered. One of the men dropped his head. The other woman kept her gaze fixed on the ground. But this one, she didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. Didn't beg. Just looked straight at us like she was saying, "You're going to live with this for the rest of your life." The order came to move them. We marched them down the dirt road that cut through the village. Kids peeked from behind doors. A few old women stood under the shade of their porches, arms wrapped around their chests, eyes full of something between fear and helplessness. I walked right behind her. The thin rubber soles of her sandals slapped against the dirt in a slow, steady rhythm. A light breeze caught her hair, lifted it just enough to show a long scratch down her cheek. The blood had dried into a thin, rust-colored line. I wondered where it came from, in the firefight? Or before that? The walk back to base felt longer than it should have. Every step, I had the sense I was walking deeper into a place I wouldn't be able to come back from. Every glance she gave over her shoulder, rare, fleeting, drove another nail into the memory I'd carry. By the time we reached the gate, the sun was high and harsh. Sweat ran into the dust on my face, turning it into a gritty paste. The prisoners were led into the temporary holding block, a row of dark rooms with iron doors. I watched her step inside. The lock turned, metal clanged. And I didn't know it then, but that was the last time I'd see her in sunlight. I didn't see her the next day. They took the prisoners into interrogation early in the morning, but I only heard about it from the night guards. It wasn't until late afternoon, when I was assigned near the detention block, that I saw the iron door open and a weak yellow light spill out from inside. The torture room, if we're calling it what it was, sat at the very end of the row. The iron door was thick, its paint peeling in long strips, hinges groaning every time it opened. Inside, the ceiling was low. A sickly yellow bulb hung from a wire, swaying, flickering like it was deciding whether to stay alive. The air was heavy with mold, with a metallic tang of old blood, of sweat. The walls were stained dark in places where water had seeped in. The concrete floor was cold, dotted with damp patches. I stood in the hallway no more than 6 feet from the door. It was cracked open just enough for a strip of light to cut across the floor. A guard's shadow stretched long and warped across the wall. Inside, I saw her, wrists tied and pulled up high, her arms stretched so tight her skin was flushed red and looked ready to split. 2 guys from my unit were taking turns on her, one with a wooden stick, the other driving fists into her stomach. Each blow made her body jolt hard, but she bit down on her lip, swallowing whatever sound tried to escape. And then it came, a sharp, dry scream breaking from deep inside her. Each scream felt like a bullet driving straight through my skull. My head pounded, my pulse spiked, but I stayed where I was. They switched tactics. One dragged in a big bucket of water, shoved her head under. The sound of churning water filled the room, mixed with the frantic thud of her feet on the floor. Her shoulders shook violently, legs kicking for air. When they pulled her up, water spilled from her mouth, her nose, but those eyes, they were still there. Not pleading. Not asking. Just looking straight through us all. Then came the generator. A small hand crank model. I knew exactly what was about to happen. One of them clipped the leads to her fingers. The other turned the handle. A faint whine, a crackle of sparks, and her whole body jerked like she'd been yanked by an invisible rope. Blood welled at her lip, dripping into the sweat along her chin. Boots scraped against the floor. Metal clinked. Every sound lodged itself deep in me, part of some record I'd never be able to stop playing back. I asked myself, what am I doing here? Why am I not walking in there? But my feet felt nailed to the floor. The hand holding my rifle shook, not from the cold but from fear. Fear of what? The sergeant? My own men? Or was it fear of having to live with the weight of saying stop? Someone shouted from inside in English, talk. Tell us. Followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the floor, then ragged breathing. A moment later, the door slammed shut. The lock turned, chains rattled, and silence swallowed the hallway. I was still standing there, my hands still shaking. And in that dark hallway, I knew I'd lost a part of myself I'd never get back. After the door slammed shut that day, I thought it was over. I was wrong. The next morning, word passed quietly down the hallway. Physical beatings hadn't gotten anything. No names. No locations. Nothing they could use. And so, they were going to change the method. I knew what that meant. Everyone did. We'd all heard about it, even if we didn't talk about it out loud. It was the thing whispered about in the barracks, half joked about by the kind of men who could only laugh when they were talking about something rotten. When I came back to my post near the interrogation block, the air felt heavier. The door to the room was open this time. No pretense of secrecy. No shame. She was sitting in a chair now. Hands tied in front instead of above, ankles bound to the legs of the chair. Her hair was wet, still clinging to her neck from yesterday's water torture. A bruise had bloomed along her jaw overnight, dark purple pushing against her pale skin. 2 men stood in front of her, one crouched low to meet her eyes. I could hear his voice, soft at first, almost like he was trying to coax her into speaking. Then the tone shifted, sharp, ugly. The words weren't just questions anymore, they were threats. When she didn't answer, the threats turned into something else. Promises of what would happen to her. Promises about what they'd do to her body. The kind of words that turned the air sour. Another man entered, Corporal Jenkins. Big, loud, and grinning in a way that made my stomach turn. He said something I couldn't hear over the pounding in my ears, but whatever it was made the others laugh. The sound of it, men laughing in that room, was worse than the screams the day before. Then they started. At first, it was little things meant to humiliate, cutting away pieces of her clothing with a knife, one by one, slow enough that she'd know exactly what was coming next. They told her they'd keep going until she decided to be helpful. I couldn't see all of it from where I was. Part of me is glad I couldn't. But I heard enough. Her chair scraped across the floor as she tried to twist away. The sound of a slap, loud, sharp. A muffled cry. And then, nothing for a few seconds. Just heavy breathing from the men. And when I did see her face again, her eyes were different. Yesterday they'd been steady, defiant, like a wall no one could climb. Now, that wall had cracks. One of the men leaned in close and whispered something in her ear. She shook her head, but slower this time. Not the sharp, certain refusal from before. More like someone already losing ground. They kept going. I won't put into words everything I think happened in there. I can't. But I know when I saw her eyes again, the cracks had widened. The defiance was almost gone. And in its place, something I'd never seen in her before. Fear. Not the quick, instinctive fear of being hit. A deeper kind. The kind that seeps in when you realize no one is coming for you. The kind that tells you there's no bottom to how bad it can get. When she finally screamed, it wasn't like yesterday. Yesterday's screams had been like sparks, brief, sharp bursts of pain. This one was hollow. It sounded like something breaking. And standing there hearing it, I thought, this isn't war anymore. This is a crime. My stomach twisted. My hands shook again, but it wasn't fear of what might happen to me if I stepped in. It was disgust. Disgust at them. Disgust at myself for being part of the same uniform, the same flag. I looked at Jenkins and the others, and for the first time I didn't see soldiers. I saw men who'd crossed a line so far back they couldn't even see it anymore. I don't know how long it went on. Time stopped meaning anything in that hallway. At some point the laughter faded. The voices got quieter. The door closed again, but not with the same violence as before. This time it was slow, deliberate, like they were sealing something in. When they walked out, they didn't look at me. I think they knew. And maybe they knew I knew. She didn't come out. Not that day. Not the day after. And I didn't go in. Not once. I told myself I couldn't have stopped it. That it wasn't my call. But the truth, the thing I can't ever scrape off my conscience, is that I didn't even try. I don't remember how many hours had passed. It could have been 20 minutes. Could have been 2 hours. In that hallway, time didn't move the way it should. The door creaked open again. Jenkins stepped out first, wiping sweat from his neck with the back of his hand. 2 others followed, still laughing under their breath like they'd just finished some kind of game. Then one of them turned to me. His face was flushed, eyes a little too bright. "Want a turn?" he said. It wasn't a question, not really. It was an invitation into something I knew I could never come back from. And in that instant, I realized just how thin the line was between being a man and becoming something else entirely. I shook my head. I don't even remember if I said anything. My mouth was dry, my chest tight. I just stepped back. They looked at me for a moment, then shrugged as if my refusal meant nothing. And maybe to them it did mean nothing. They'd already decided who they were. I turned and walked away. My boots echoed down the hallway, each step feeling heavier than the last. I could still hear their voices behind me, muffled now by the distance. Then, the scream. It cut through the walls like a blade. Not the kind of scream that fades. The kind that digs and stays with you. I kept walking. Out of the building. Out into the harsh sun that made my eyes water. I told myself I needed air. That I couldn't breathe in there. But the truth was simpler. I was running, from them, from her, from myself. I didn't go far. Just to the edge of the yard, where the barbed wire caught the light and the smell of dust and diesel filled my nose. I stood there, staring out at the fields, pretending the war was somewhere else. But the screams didn't stop. Not in my ears. Not in my head. I had left the room. I had left the building. But I hadn't left what was happening in there. I carried it with me step for step. I had walked away, but I took it all with me. The next day, word came down that she'd finally talked. They said she gave them names, a location, somewhere out near the tree line north of the river. I didn't ask how they got it. I didn't have to. Orders went out before sunrise. We geared up and moved fast, the kind of pace that told everyone the brass believed we had something worth chasing. My squad was point. We crossed the river at first light, boots slipping on wet stones, rifles held high. The air was thick with humidity, the kind that clings to your skin and makes every breath feel heavy. But the place she described, it was empty. No camp. No fighters. Just a few burned-out cooking fires and footprints that led nowhere. We swept the area twice, 3 times, but it was nothing. Whoever had been there was long gone, maybe had never been there at all. By mid-morning, the order came to pull back. No contact. No intel. Just silence. On the way back, no one said a word. The jungle was loud, birds, insects, the splash of boots through shallow water, but between us there was nothing. Not even the usual grumbling when a mission went bad. When we got to base, they filed their reports. The paperwork made it sound clean, information received, location checked. No enemy presence. But we all knew what it had cost to get that information. And it hadn't bought us a damn thing. Nobody mentioned her. Nobody mentioned the room. But you could feel it. It hung over us like the heat, unspoken, heavy, unavoidable. I didn't see her again. I don't know if she was moved or if something else happened. I didn't ask. Part of me didn't want to know. That night, I lay on my bunk staring at the ceiling, the whir of the fan doing nothing to drown out the memory. I thought about the empty clearing north of the river. I thought about her eyes, what they looked like before and after. We didn't win anything out there. Not ground. Not an advantage. Not the war. We didn't win anything, except a stain we'd never wash off. When the war ended for me, it didn't really end. I flew home with a duffel bag and a head full of noise. People at the airport clapped. A few waved flags. Someone shook my hand and said, "Welcome home, soldier." I smiled back, lied with my face. What I brought home wasn't victory. It was a shadow that followed me through every room, every night. The first time the nightmare came, I thought it was just my mind working through things. But it came again, and again, and it was always the same. I'd be back in that hallway, the light from the door spilling across the floor. I'd hear the laughter, the muffled voices, then her scream. Sometimes I'd see her face before it broke, steady, defiant. Other times I'd see it after, cracked, emptied of everything but fear. And always her eyes. Those eyes would find me in the dream just like they did in that room. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my heart hammering, my hands clenched like I was still gripping a rifle. Years passed. I got married. We had a daughter. She had her mother's smile, but her eyes. God help me, there were days I'd catch her looking at me in a way that brought it all back. Not because she knew, but because I couldn't separate the two anymore. When she was about the age that girl had been, the guilt got heavier. I'd watch her walk across the yard, her hair catching the light, and I'd feel it, this crushing weight in my chest. Because I knew what I had allowed to happen to someone else's daughter. I never touched that girl. Never laid a hand on her. But I let them do it. And that's the part one can't ever put down. No medal, no parade, no kind word from a stranger will ever balance it out. It's carved into me, deeper than any scar. Some nights, I wake and stand by the window looking out into the dark. I tell myself she survived. That maybe she went home, found her family, lived her life. But it's a story I make up to quiet my own head. Because the truth is, I don't know. And the not knowing, that's its own kind of torture. For years, I didn't have a name for what was wrong with me. I'd heard about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. The flashbacks, the nightmares, the sudden jolt when a car backfired or a door slammed. And yes, I had some of that. But it didn't explain the whole thing. PTSD was about fear. About surviving something that could have killed you. What I carried was different. It wasn't about what had been done to me. It was about what I had done, or what I had allowed to happen. One day, a counselor used a term I'd never heard before, moral injury. She explained it like this: it's what happens when you witness or take part in something that goes against your deepest moral beliefs. When you cross, or watch someone else cross, a line you thought was unbreakable. It's not just regret. It's not just guilt. It's a wound you can't see, but you feel it every time you remember. Every time you wake up in the middle of the night and realize the person you were before is gone. This wound doesn't bleed, but it eats away from the inside. PTSD can make you afraid of the world. Moral injury makes you afraid of yourself, of who you are now, of who you became in that moment. And it doesn't heal on its own. You can't stitch it up. You can't put a bandage over it. You carry it, and it carries you into every room, every relationship, every quiet moment when no one else is around. The hardest part? People will thank you for your service without ever knowing the truth of what you've seen. They'll see the uniform, the medals, the years served, but they won't see the stain that uniform covered. PTSD can fade with time, with therapy, with medication. Moral injury, you can learn to live with it, maybe, but it never really leaves. And that's the part one wish I'd known back then, that the worst wounds aren't the ones that take your life. They're the ones that take the person you were and leave you to live with what's left. For most of my life, I kept this story locked away. I told myself it was better that way, that no good could come from digging it up. That people wouldn't understand. That it would only cause pain. But the truth is, I was protecting myself. Protecting myself from the judgment I deserved. From having to say out loud what I'd seen, what I'd failed to stop. Now I'm old. The war is a half-century behind me. I've buried friends, buried family. And I know there aren't many pages left in my book. I don't want to take this secret to the grave. So I'm telling it now, not for forgiveness. I don't expect that. But because silence doesn't erase what happened. It only lets it fester in the dark. I want to say something to the women of Vietnam, those who suffered not just from bullets and bombs, but from the cruelty of men who wore my uniform. I'm sorry. I didn't touch her. Not once. But I stood there. I heard her screams. I walked away, and I let it happen. I have been silent for too long. And silence is its own kind of crime. If there's one thing I hope people take from this, it's that war doesn't end when the shooting stops. It doesn't just kill the ones who fall on the battlefield, it kills parts of the people who survive. It kills the part of you that believes you're still a good man. We like to remember the glory, the heroism, the sacrifices we choose to talk about. But there are other sacrifices, the ones you never volunteered for. The ones that cost you your sleep, your peace, your sense of who you are. And if we forget that side of war, we're doomed to repeat it. Different place, different time, same story. I don't have much to give at this point in my life. But I can give this warning. If you ever find yourself in a moment where you can choose to step in, to stop something you know is wrong, do it. Don't let fear or loyalty or orders keep you still. Because the moment you stay silent, you're part of it. I still see her. Every night when the lights go out, she's there, those eyes holding me in place. Sometimes they're the eyes from before, still unbroken. Sometimes they're after, full of a fear I can't unsee. And then the dark takes over. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. These words have been heavy for me to carry and heavier still to speak. But maybe together we can make sure they're not wasted. Remember history. Learn from it. Tell it even when it's ugly, especially when it's ugly, so we never walk this same road again. If this story moved you, share it. Talk about it. Leave a comment below. I'll read them. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories from the men who lived through it, and from those who were on the other side. Because stories are the only way we keep the truth alive. And the truth is all we have left.